Morning folks, and it is morning, not sunset. The sun I don't think has even risen over Moel Valley just yet, but I'm here shooting the moon. The moon is setting. I've been waiting for this all morning. I've just been photographing Jupiter and Saturn over the top of the garage. I'm a bit gutted it was really cloudy last week, otherwise I could have got Mars in there as well, all three in a row, but two of the planets isn't bad in one shot. So what I'm doing right now is I'm shooting on the Sony a7 III with 70-200, but also I thought I'd give it a whirl on the iPad. This is the 2018 iPad Pro. I'm shooting using the Lightroom mobile app. So using the camera in-app, you can actually take DNG files and then I'm putting them straight into a new folder that I've created and should be able to edit them right from there. I've been meaning to do a video like this for quite some time. I wanted to head out into the forest or in the mountains and just do a bit of a parody video, landscape photography on an iPad. But, you know, things happen, pandemics come and go. So I've been stuck at home for the last 2 months and it just hasn't happened yet. On the Sony, however, I think I'm getting some pretty good shots. The moon is just getting close to the horizon now. It's just passing through some cloud. It's a lovely shade of sort of creamy orangey yellow at the moment. The colours off it were lovely yesterday afternoon, but unfortunately it was just too far to our right, so there's a load of trees and stuff covering it. I couldn't actually see it setting. But today, hopefully, it will be setting within my frame. I might have to move a little bit because of another tree. I am zoomed right in at 200mm. I wish I had a like 400mm, something like that. I am stopped down to f8 to try and stop any fringing and chromatic aberration, that sort of thing, and to really try and get a bit of detail in the moon. In fact, I'm going to reel off a few here. So those three are just manually bracketed. I took the first shot 2 stops underexposed, in which I think I was getting a nice bit of detail in the moon itself. Then 1 shot, 1 stop underexposed, and then 1 shot exposed properly. So I should be able to merge those pretty easily. I've had enough of the iPad, to be honest with you. I could have been really pretentious and used the pencil to take my shots as well. Okay, so right now the moon is just verging on the horizon. Ahead in front of me we've got the hills leading up to the Denbigh Moors, so towards like Saron and Buntuchel, that sort of direction. If you don't know, I'm here in the Vale of Clwyd, Clwydian Valley. So excuse me while I keep reeling off shots. I am manually focusing on all these as well, by the way. Again, manually bracketing. It's just touching the horizon now. And away it goes. So I think I got my shots of it just sitting on the horizon. I will quite likely get another few as well, just while it's still setting, maybe when it's halfway down, and again when it's about to disappear. Just another few bracketed photos. And it's near enough gone now. I might still be able to show you where Jupiter and Saturn were. No, they've disappeared. But they were basically up behind the garage. Yeah, like I say, I did get a couple of shots. I was focusing on the weather vane, which you will have seen from previous videos. So basically I had one planet either side of the weather vane. Yeah, I'll throw those up on the screen now. Okay, so I'll just show you quickly how I process some of these moon photos. So starting with the very last ones, these are very much the same shooting conditions, not really much different in lighting. But you can see in my right hand panel in the develop module on Lightroom, the majority of this really was just done in the tone curve. So if we flip back to the original image, we can see that the moon doesn't really change very much, but the rest of the photograph does. So all I've done is slightly lifted the shadows and then slightly lifted the midtones plus a little bit more, and then lifted the highlights, but then I've just knocked down the highlight clipping, so we've got this little bit of a fall off curve. So what I'll do to show you, I'll reset the tone curve completely. Now in this instance I was bracketing, but if we look at the final bracket of the image, the moon is just that little bit lower under the horizon. So I chose this image, which meant that I had to boost it nearly a stop to make up for the loss of light. I've boosted the contrast a little bit, which also gives me a little more saturation. You can see a bit of colour in the clouds and in the trees and grasses as well. And then I've upped the shadows a little bit more as well. Let's go back to the start. So let's say +1 exposure. Contrast was around 20 to 30, something like that. Up to the shadows a little more, say about there. And I just added some texture as well, just to bring out a bit more detail in the moon face, like so. And then tone curve, I'll just boost the shadows a little bit, midtones a little bit more, and you see the difference with the sky around the moon. Let's reset it. You can see the sky brightening up, but the moon's not really changing that much. So do that there. Highlights, I've really just clicked to create a point, and then I can drag down the top point to about there. Then I'm fairly happy with that image. It's not a super high resolution image. I've only got the A7 III, not the R3 or the R4, and I was only shooting at 200mm, which is the longest focal length that I have. Ideally, I wish I had a 400, 500mm lens, which then shooting on one of the Sony R cameras, I could then punch in even further. But you've got to make do with what you've got. And that process was pretty much identical to the previous one, with the moon sitting on the horizon. It looks different now because I've changed it again, but those two I basically just copy and pasted the develop settings. This previous one in the sky, you can see again, pretty much the same tone curve. Exposure, I didn't have to boost as much. You can definitely see more colour in the moon in this one, even though I've not played with any of the colours at all. It may be the white balance that's slightly different. Yeah, the white balance is a little more yellow than in those previous images. Again, it's not major resolution, but for the camera and equipment that I have, I'm pretty happy with it. I'll just quickly talk through what I did with the planetary images with Saturn and Jupiter. Very simply, I took one shot with the planets in focus, or as best as I could. Then I took one shot with the weather vane in focus, not altering the frame at all. Right click, opened both of those as layers in Photoshop, and then I just played around with masking and adjustment layers just to make sure that the sky was exposed exactly the same in each image, and then I used Content Aware to get rid of the power line. And that was it really. So we'll leave it there for that one, I think. Thank you very much for watching. Bit of a boring one if I say so myself, but I was excited shooting it. I didn't really make that much of a video about it. I had no plan at all with it. With regards to the iPad, it was a bit of a joke. I mean, I absolutely love it for editing my images. I did most of my wedding photo edits on the iPad last year, but as a camera, I wouldn't bother. I think there's certainly something to be had about using Lightroom Mobile on a phone. Phone cameras tend to have far better software and or hardware. I have used it quite a bit just for the odd Instagram posts and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, an actual proper camera, you go and get far better, far cleaner images with them. Either way, I'm waffling, so I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more, do please consider hitting subscribe down in the bottom corner there. Give it a like as well, leave a comment if you've got any questions or anything. And otherwise, until the next one, be good, stay safe, get creative, and I'll see you in the next video.